So my name is Stephanie Futter-Orel. I'm Austrian by birth, but I've lived in many different places around the world, amongst them Brazil, Bolivia, India, but most significantly for my current work, I've lived 9 years in London, of which I worked 7 years in the Women's Specialist Services sector against violence. I have worked directly with women affected by domestic sexual violence, trafficking and other forms of violence against women, and also managed large services, for example advice, advocacy, counselling service, rape crisis services and shelter provision in different parts of London and also national services. So from this experience it gives me quite a good impression of what our members are dealing with on a daily level. But still, this comes from quite a privileged funding position of having worked in the UK, where there's certainly more services and funding available than in many of our member countries. My role as an executive manager is I'm responsible for the operational work of WAVE, but also the support and development of the WAVE staff team. And together with the board, I developed the strategic work of WAVE. Within all of this, our members are a crucial factor of making our work happen, so liaison with the members and how we best support them is also part of my work. And apart from this, as a general mission to promote feminism and the sustainability of WAVE's work by including future generations as well, current and future generations into our work. A lot of pride that I'm a part of this network now for a few years, that we are standing on the shoulders of the founding members and all the previous generations or years of women who've made WAVE's work possible to the extent where we are today. But also I proudly stand with all the current members and the younger and those who will come in the future in developing this work further. So today we are really a strong network of 150 members in 46 countries in Europe, and it is incredible to think that our members, who most of them are specialist women's services or networks of those services, jointly support around 1 million women every year throughout Europe who are affected by violence against women. And I think having built this level of joint and collective support amongst women is something to be incredibly proud of. By joining all these voices and experiences and knowledge, we actually make a collective voice out of single voices that could be more easily overlooked by national or international politicians and policymakers. So together we actually enable women's voices to be heard much more effectively. In terms of addressing this backlash, I think there are two different ways. One way is obviously to fight back and to advocate for our rights and for what we have already gained, because some governments are currently actively working to dismantle some of the progress that has already been achieved, be that in terms of abortion rights or international legislative frameworks like the Istanbul Convention and other progress that has already been achieved. So we need to continue our classical advocacy work to prevent this from happening as a joint network. However, there's another part to that, because we do, as women's organizations, as human rights activists, we often face ourselves in a defensive position where we need to say, well, it's not like that, like these governments are saying, it's not like this, but what we actually need to do is build a positive future and a positive vision, an empowered future for other women that can be believed in. So that we say, well, we actually stand for empowerment, for an equal society for everyone, and that violence against women affects all of society equally. So with that, within WAVE, through our strategic plan for the next 4 years, we're also trying to reach other parts of the population. Those people who may not be classically engaged with the topic of violence against women, and we also will work with unusual allies. By that I mean not people who are usually within the feminist sector, so for example community leaders or influencers for younger people, also faith leaders at times who enable us to reach parts of the population with the message, that we would not be able to reach. And several projects in our member states have done similar initiatives and have had great success with that, because I think we need to engage the wider population in that discourse around violence against women, because you only can tackle that together at the end of the day. It's not the woman's problem, it's a woman's and men's and everybody's problem. Another very important aspect about our members' work I would like to highlight is that as Women's Specialist Services, not only do they save hundreds of thousands of lives or a million lives every year throughout Europe, they also enable women to reach safety a lot faster than women would normally be able to do so, or to start a new life if they had to rely on government services alone. And Women's Specialist Services are equipped to deal with the holistic needs of women experiencing violence. Apart from the human rights aspect of that, they also save governments literally billions of euros or whatever other currency you want to use for our countries every year. Studies in the UK and France have shown that for every euro invested into a women's specialist service, these services give back about 6 to 8 euros to the general community and society. What I mean by that is they save massive amounts of hospital costs, policing costs, social services, costs for temporary accommodation, and also millions of euros lost in terms of workforce every year because women are too injured to come to work. And this is apart, as I said, from all the human rights impact of violence against women. My favorite part of my job is to work with this incredible amount of women throughout Europe who are passionate, knowledgeable and strong, as well as resilient in so many ways to tackle violence against women and to prevent it. It's very interesting for me as well, coming from a direct service delivery experience in the UK, to see so many different approaches of tackling violence against women, sometimes also with very limited resources, but nevertheless quite some impact. And personally, I really enjoy working on new and innovative projects to tackle violence against women. For example, developing our Youth Ambassador campaign, where we actually are aiming to involve young people a lot more proactively in preventing violence. And by making them peer advocates to speak to other young people and bring them on board, because I think without involving the younger generations, we will not survive as a network. So we need to continue our work and ensure the resilience of the network through involving future generations as well as current ones. My favorite moments in the WAVE office is when I see that we have together as a team been working on a new project or initiatives and things come together. And after many hard months of work and trials and error, which is always part of project work, and we finally see the first successes and impact we make. I also enjoy our team meetings where we sit together every 3 weeks to exchange our collective work experiences and also share positive sharing, because it's important with all the challenges and difficulties that we remind ourselves there are always good things to celebrate, and we do that at least every 3 weeks. And of course, I also enjoy having our office dogs, Jante and Sigi, in the office. They have been actually quite therapeutic in times of stress to me and other members of the team. And I like the sense of solidarity and positive spirit that is part of our WAVE office.